Howdy, folks. I'm Cool Carbon, creatively circumventing cantankerous coral,
I'm Amber.
and here's more cantankerous coral for us to circumvent. Is that like coral involved in like shipwrecks or something like that? And what is carbon doing with them?
I mean, carbon is everywhere. Carbon's even in the coral, isn't it?
Well, yeah, carbon's in everything. But why is it circumventing the coral?
Well, because it can.
I see. Because it can, folks. You heard it first here.
Carbon doesn't have to have a reason to do what it does.
All right, folks, our first letter is titled, I'm a 36-year-old male, and I found out that my wife, a 28-year-old female, has booked a one-way ticket while I booked a round trip. How do I approach her about it? Edit to add, I already have contacted a lawyer who has advised me not to confront her right now, but thank you for this suggestion. My wife and I are due to go to Egypt in 6 days. We bought our tickets earlier this year, and my wife planned the vacation, meaning she bought the tickets. I'm usually the one to do these types of things, but she was very eager to plan it since she hasn't been there since coming there 8 years ago. Our daughter, 1, is under her because they're supposed to spend a month there while I spend 2 weeks there. When my wife bought the ticket, she sent the PDF. Her PDF had a return date when she sent them. I sent those to my cousin picking us up, and he recently asked me to resend the flight info, so I sent the PDF. I decided to download a new one, and I noticed that I couldn't get in. I told her about it, and she said it was the same and that she never changed it. I did believe her, but I tried again on our iPad, and she changed the password. So I go to download the PDF, and her ticket doesn't have a return flight. This could have been a bug on the site, so I called the airline themselves, and it's a one-way ticket. I simply asked my wife to send me the PDF of her flight, and she sent me the one with the September return date. This is where I need advice. I might be overthinking this, but I feel like the next move that I make are critical because it's obvious she lied and that this is not a mistake. I would like advice on approaching why she lied. All right, folks, what do you think of this one? And we already have a little bit of advice here, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely shady. It sounds like she does not intend to come back or to bring your daughter back. Now for some context from the comments, apparently OP's wife has been frustrated ever since they moved for his job and has wanted to move back or wanted him to finance her a place in their old place they lived where there are a lot of other people of like different ethnicities. She feels very isolated.
Yeah.
But that's not a good reason to kidnap a child.
Well, the trouble is, like, we only ever see one side of these stories, and so we don't actually know what kind of person OP is, right? She could be fleeing from a bad situation, and we don't know it.
Yeah, I mean, he claims in the comments there's no abuse, but it's, of course, him claiming that. So.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that this is a case of abuse.
Yeah.
This would be wild speculation. It's clear that she has other plans in mind than to spend the rest of the time wherever OP is. It seems like she is fleeing for one reason or another, and whether justified or not justified, and is not letting OP in on that plan.
Yeah, so I mean, I think OP has contacted a lawyer, and that's the best course of action. They will be able to give him better advice than anyone on the internet can.
Yeah, and the thing is this. I feel bad for OP, but if she's made her mind up that she doesn't want to reconcile, that she doesn't want to live here, and that she has to flee like this without talking to him, then does he really want to spend more time with someone who just clearly doesn't want to be with her? And, I mean, I think the answer is, why would you have a one-sided relationship like this at that point in time, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the big complicating factor is the kid, because the kid can't live both where OP is and in Egypt at the same time.
Yeah, definitely sounds like she has a lot of buyer's remorse in this relationship. And, again, I'm not saying that's justified for one reason or another. Anyone can end a relationship for any reason. It just would probably have been better if she had confronted him directly as opposed to this kind of sneaky, I'm going to do this behind his back type of thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. There may be, due to like the lack of treaties and whatnot with Egypt, there may be very little the U.S. can do to get the child back if she lands in Egypt.
But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. Garbage Stan says, this is shady as F. Whose idea was Egypt in the first place? And OP replies, it was both of ours. It's something that we've been talking about for a long time, especially since getting married, because we still have to do our wedding over there. And Phoenix 512 says, wait, your marriage isn't recognized there? That's not good, as Egypt has recently, in 2021, reformed national laws to extend the right to citizenship to children born to Egyptian mothers. And OP replies, our marriage is set in stone. We just haven't had a big ceremony due to us getting married during quarantine. So it sounds like they're officially married, but they were going to have a wedding celebration over in Egypt, and they never did that. And I think also, the last couple of years have been really isolating for some people, and she may just feel like this was a ceremony that she wasn't happy with. Maybe she felt pressured into accepting the marriage and then moving on top of that and then being isolated for 2 years. And it might just be all around a bad situation, and OP might not realize how bad it is for her.
Yeah, well, I mean, from the comments, it sounds like he is just absolutely saying we cannot move because of my job. I don't know the extent of his contract, but like when you get to that impasse, there's not much you can do other than separate.
Yeah. And Our Lazy says, is it possible that she booked 2 one-way tickets separately? And OP replies, it doesn't explain why she lied. If she booked 2 one-way tickets, then it would have made sense for her to tell me, not forge a return ticket under the same number. And Playful Sight 2714 says, I would stay at home with your daughter. Let her go on her own. You already do have a bad feeling now. I'd not go, really. Where would you be sleeping, family or hotel? And OP replies, we would be staying with family. And Salamander Pop says, is she planning on disappearing with her kid? This feels exceedingly worrisome and well above my pay grade. I think that you need to consider the worst here and get this figured out before your kid ends up on a plane and you never see them again. And OP replies, that's why I haven't asked her yet, because I think that she might be trying to. I don't want to ask her without something to lean back on, and then in the blink of an eye, she leaves with my daughter. Sure, this might be a reach, but it's crossed my mind several times. No child of mine would ever be raised in Egypt, ever. This might be part of the reason why OP's wife is really like doing this kind of secretively, because she might not want to be separated from her daughter, and she doesn't know how it's going to be handled with like the legalities of them living in different countries. So.
Yeah, well, because if they get an official divorce, part of the divorce decree may be that you're not allowed to take the child out of the country, and that's very common in divorce decrees. And so if she's wants to move back to Egypt and can't take the child, that gets sticky.
Yeah, this is a really sticky situation. I don't envy either OP or his wife in this situation. And Concern for a Human says, contact a lawyer. Have them draw up something that your son can't leave the country and that you need to be informed when he's at an airport. Try to check your wife's iPad if they have fake passports and documentation. Don't confront your wife alone. If you yell, you might be painted as an abuser. If allowed in your state, put cameras and recordings everywhere. And OP replies, I have contacted a lawyer and I was advised to not try anything right now and wait until I'm on vacation, as in off from work, not vacation in Egypt. My wife's iPad has nothing on it that is concerning. Run-of-the-mill photos, history goes back a couple of weeks, not altering, and everything else on there that I've seen does not jump out. Alright folks, our next letter is titled, Am I a jerk for telling the parents of my 8-year-old niece that her art is less important than mine? I am an artist. The majority of my income is tabling at conventions like Comic-Con. I work hard not to toot my own horn, but I am skilled. I invested a lot of time and money, and that rewards me with a good income and a cool job. My niece is starting to draw, mostly anime characters. She has an iPad and program that I use because she wants to be like me, and that's cool. Edit, I originally explained here that she's not a great artist yet. She only started a few months ago. Family kept telling me that she's Mozart, and I was frustrated, so I was tactless about how I worded it. Originally, the Automod commented, if you care about seeing that, she's going to be an amazing artist, and I'm encouraging her to practice. Scene, big convention, my biggest money maker, the highest stress event in my calendar. Long days, long weekend, high cost, high reward. Niece loves anime, so the family is going. Week before, I get a call that they've made prints of niece's art and want to put them on my table. I said that they could have a little space. Day 1, they left her with me to be a little helper. She stood in front of my table, directing people to her prints. I lost a lot of sales. People wanted to look at her art and coo at the adorable child, but that resulted in people blocking my table. Day 2. I said that I wouldn't babysit and I had a table to run. Her parents stayed much worse. They blocked the table and accosted anyone who came up, interrupting people buying from me to talk about the niece. I was stressed and tired. I am ashamed. I barely stood for myself. Every time I was tired, I was told off. I had a panic attack all Saturday as potential customers were grabbed away by my aunt and uncle. Day 3, they left. Niece was overwhelmed. Her parents were mad at me. Day 3 is slow, but made most of the money, so yeah, glad they weren't there. Usually I make 3 months rent at this con. Footfall and hype were high. I barely broke even. They want to bring her to the next one. Take more table space, much more. She sold a dozen prints. I'm proud of her for that, but events can cost thousands. I can't afford to finance her. I put my foot down. If this was another job, you couldn't force a take your niece to the workday. But because it's art and it's a hobby, they've pushed the boundary. They argue that I should be a role model. I'm jealous of the attention. I'm afraid of the competition. I'm selfish for thinking that I'm better, etc. I got angry and I said, yes, my art is better. It's my income and it's good enough to sell. They said that she needs me, as she wouldn't be accepted if she applies to the con herself. I said that there's a reason for that. It was mean, but it was also true. This is my job. I won't compromise. So get a real job. She could do art fairs, easier stuff, and I offered to take her to small events, but that enraged them. How dare I gatekeep? I'm not her parents' ticket to fame and fortune. They bring up my follower count and think that I should leverage it for her benefit too. But that puts a major dip in my engagement. Family thinks that I'm bad. Do I? Am I bad? All right, folks, what do you think? Jerk or not the jerk?
Not the jerk. What they're doing here is not okay. They're trying to circumvent the rules of the convention to get their daughters into here.
Yeah.
Like, they know, I mean, she's 8. 8-year-olds, okay, what is talent for an 8-year-old is not necessarily talent for an adult. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, you're well within your right to not sacrifice your income and your reputation just so your niece can have, play at the con and sell a few paintings or drawings, images.
Yeah, so I want to point something out here. She's 8, right? She has a long way ahead of her, but she's been practicing art for at most, well, they said not even a couple of months here, right? OP is an adult who has been doing art all of their life. They have more than 8 years worth of experience doing art, right? It would be rude to tell someone who has, dozens of years worth of experience doing art that an 8-year-old is better than them, and that they're only looking at the side of the niece here, right? They're like, oh, the niece is better than you or on par with you, when
right.
OP spent all this time, energy, effort improving their skills.
And the thing that doesn't make any sense is they know she's not good enough to get her own table, but they're like, what, are you afraid of the competition? And it's like, well, clearly not, because she can't get her own booth.
Yeah. I would say to the parents that she needs to do what everyone else does at these conventions and put together a portfolio and see if they would be willing to table or have her table. And it's an unreasonable ask to draw away people from OP's table.
Yeah, and I mean, I think OP's idea of like a craft fair and smaller events is perfectly acceptable. They're trying to circumvent the system and get their daughter an advantage when most people start out, doing these small events.
Yeah.
Have her start small, and if she likes it and continues to grow and develop her skills, then someday she may be able to submit to these cons and work them.
Well, and what makes things worse here is they're trying to use high pressure sales, and they're trying to sell her cuteness, right? If her art was good enough to sell, it would sell on its own, right? It's not going to need her cuteness factor. It's not going to need the parents hovering over her, hovering over the patrons and being like, buy these things over here, right? These are high pressure sales tactics, and generally people, when they're browsing things like this, they don't want to be pushed in a bad position where they feel pressured to buy something.
Oh yeah, like anytime I go through something, like I try and avoid anywhere where it looks like they're trying to like grab people over, because I get stressed, I get anxious, I don't want to be pressured to buy things.
Yeah, and I think what also with the follower count, right? OP's followers are into a specific type of art, right? They are into a specific format, and that's the people that OP has, worked with and grown with. And trying to present someone else's art on that particular niche isn't going to go well.
Yeah, well, and they're also, like, not thinking long term. Like, if the niece grows to be a teenager, she's still doing art, and she has a lot of talent, maybe then OP can start introducing her to other people who have a similar interest and style and all that sort of stuff. But you don't take an 8-year-old and be like, okay, everyone, now buy all her stuff, because people just don't want to buy an 8-year-old's art, generally speaking.
Yeah. And it's just not the right place or the right time, right? And I think that this is just a unfortunate situation. I feel bad for OP because they lost all this income, right? And the parents aren't going to be supporting that. I can understand, like, if they were like, we'll pay up for any missed income by doing this, right?
No, but instead they're like, get a real job.
Yeah.
Like, so they're simultaneously delegitimizing OP's work while also being like, but my daughter has to do this.
But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. And Slacker Chick says, everyone's bad. The parents are bad for dominating your table, time, and income while being so pushy and entitled, and you're bad for being such a savage critic regarding your niece's art. You should know that art is subjective, and to be honest, you sound a tad jealous. People were treating your niece like a protege and were buying her art, so she can't be too lacking. You also don't want to discourage her from what you admit is an attempt to be more like you. You could pass on your experience and techniques to her while simultaneously honoring your own. My grandfather was a professional artist, and he continued taking classes that he could teach circles around until the day he became incapacitated because you never stopped learning your craft. That being said, people have to earn their spots at the top. You took your time and effort to get where you were, and I can see why skipping the line irritates you so much. In fact, the climb to the top teaches you a lot about all the aspects of the industry, and if her parents truly wanted her to have a portfolio, they need to build it from ground up, starting at local shows, not full-blown cons. It also could create pressure and unrealistic expectations for a child who is so young and impressionable. Between you thinking that she's not great and her parents thinking that she's the next Basquiat, this kid is being set up to want to quit something that she's so passionate about.
I mean, I think the last part of their comment has some merit, but the first part, it sounds like the daughter was probably getting pity buys.
Yeah.
And so I don't think Opie didn't come across as jealous to me, just very frustrated.
I think frustration comes across as well. I think that if the niece had sold like 3 months worth of rent,
like,
then
just this
would have been
massive
jealous.
volume of stuff, but like 12 sales when you have pushy people, and like, not to stereotype, but there are plenty of people at cons who are very like non-confrontational and like are just gonna buy so that the parents don't keep harassing them,
or they just thought it was cute,
or they
that
thought
an
it was
8-year-old
cute,
was at a con selling art and they wanted to encourage her, right? And I mean, I think that it's hard to say no to a kid. Right? I think we all know that it's hard to say no to a cute kid. OP says, I was weirdly harsh with my wording. I've gone back and edited it. For context, I wrote this while the family was comparing me to not letting her come to cons as taking away Mozart's piano. So I was arguing against that, even though obviously someone reading the post wouldn't know that. She's awesome for only being a few months in, and she'll be an incredible artist. I enjoy teaching her, but I genuinely think that she isn't ready for selling her art yet. I think the real comparison would be if OP smashed their tablet or took away their writing utensils or something like that, then it would be like taking away Mozart's piano.
Well, that's the thing, is like, you do not have to have access to a con to do art. And so you have to have access to drawing supplies of some form. And Opie hasn't removed her drawing supplies. Opie hasn't even taken away anything because she hasn't earned her con access.
Yeah. Well, and then also on top of everything, they had dollar signs in their eyes. They saw, and like what you were saying earlier, they don't value what OP does. And so when they saw how much money OP was making, they're like, this is easy. The kid could do that too, right? And they were like dollar signs in their eyes. 3 months worth of rent type of thing. We'll push the kid in there. How hard could it be to sell the art anyways? Very, very hard. All right, folks, it is tea time. Grab your beverages of choice. I've got some tea right here. Amber, she's got a joke that also deals with art.
No.
It's a very artistic joke.
It's the opposite of artistic. What happened when the skunk was on trial?
Well, I can tell you exactly what happened when the skunk was on trial, because I was actually there at the trial. The skunk was on trial for stealing art. And the skunk denied stealing art up and down. And then, while they were talking and deliberating and all kinds of stuff like that, one of the pieces of art, it was a very small one, fell out of the skunk's breast coat pocket and onto the ground into the middle of the courtroom. And then the judge was like, that's some of the stolen art. Why did you bring that to the courtroom? And the skunk was like, I don't know. I make bad decisions. And that's what the skunk said while they were on trial.
The judge declared, odor in the court, odor in the court.
Well, there was a lot of, chaos after the skunk dropped the art, and so it did, erupt, and so I can see why the judge said that. And I have made amends.
See, I'm surprised that in your story, the skunk didn't just spray all the judge and jurors and run out of the courtroom.
Oh, I mean, they tried that. But you can only spray once every, 2 days as a skunk or something like that. They need a recharge. So this was after the first trial didn't go so well. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Happy Friday. Wow, we made it to the end of the week, folks. Congratulations. Give yourself a pat on the back. Don't go playing with skunks or anything like that either, because it'll make your weekend not a good weekend, I promise. Unless you have a pet skunk that doesn't have its scent glands. Amber, we need some kind of moral advice and or guidance. And please, have it a saying that might be featured on some cool conventional art.
It's not the destination, it's the journey. I feel like that's what the parents are missing in that second story, is they want her making money now, but there's so much more to it than just getting to the con and selling all your art.
Yeah, it could also apply to the first one.
I mean...
Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye!